The leather chair is cold beneath me. It's the middle of the day, but the office is eerily silent, wrapped in a tension so thick you could cut it with a letter opener. I sit here, behind this desk that isn't mine, the wood cool and polished under my fingertips. The air conditioning hums, a low, steady drone that does nothing to calm the storm gathering in my chest. Every beat of my heart feels like a drum against the silence. I look out the window at the city skyline, a million lives moving unaware, while in this room, a lifetime is about to converge. The door opens. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. For years, this office, this very chair, was the focal point of my ambition. It represented the pinnacle, the place where the decisions were made, the power resided. It was also the place where my dreams were routinely dismantled, piece by piece, by the man who now stands frozen in the doorway. He's still there, a statue of disbelief. His face, usually set in an expression of mild, self-satisfied authority, is slack. His eyes, wide behind his expensive glasses, dart from me to the chair, then back to me. He's trying to compute. The man who denied me, dismissed me, subtly and not so subtly sabotaged me for half a decade, is looking at me as if I'm a ghost. Perhaps, in a way, I am the ghost of the person he tried to bury. 5 years. 5 years, I poured my life into this company. Not just the hours, the late nights fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer determination, but the energy, the creativity, the very best of my strategic thinking. I built projects from the ground up, the kind that landed the company major contracts, that streamlined entire departments, that added significant numbers to the bottom line. I didn't just do my job, I breathed it. I saw its potential. I saw where we could go, and I genuinely believed I was an integral part of getting us there. My desire for the promotion wasn't just about a title or more money, although yes, those things mattered. It was validation. It was the natural next step in a career I was passionate about. It felt earned, deserved. I picture myself in that corner office, not for the view, but for the ability to actually shape things, to implement the changes I knew would make us stronger, faster, better. My boss, David, was at first a mentor figure. Charismatic, sharp, a skilled operator. He saw my potential, he said so often. He gave me challenging assignments, praised my work in team meetings. He talked about the future, my future within the company, painting a picture that mirrored my own aspirations. I trusted him. I looked up to him. He represented the success I wanted to achieve. The first time the conversation about promotion came up, it was casual. A performance review where I exceeded every metric. I brought up my readiness for the next level, outlining my achievements, presenting my case with data and quiet confidence. David nodded, smiled. He said he agreed that I was definitely on the right track, a valuable asset. He spoke of timing, of needing to position things correctly within the corporate structure, the inevitable red tape. He promised to champion my case. I left that meeting feeling hopeful, buzzing with energy. The wait would be worth it. He was in my corner. The waiting stretched into months. I kept performing, kept pushing boundaries. I took on extra responsibilities without being asked, just to further prove my capability. I watched as others, less experienced, less successful in their roles, moved up. Doubt began to creep in, a cold, unsettling sensation in the pit of my stomach. I dismissed it. David had said timing was everything. Corporate politics were complex. I just needed to be patient. The second formal conversation happened a year later. My performance was even stronger. I came armed with more data, more examples of impact. I was more direct this time. This wasn't a casual chat. It was a request, a statement of intent. David listened, leaning back in his chair, the same one I'm sitting in now. He looked thoughtful, even sympathetic. He acknowledged my contributions, praised my work ethic, my intelligence. Then came the but. "You're doing great work," he said, his voice smooth, almost regretful. "Really tremendous. But..." The air went still. I braced myself. We've decided to go in a slightly different direction for that role right now. We're looking for someone with a broader network, perhaps, or maybe a different kind of external experience." His eyes didn't quite meet mine. He talked about restructuring, about changing market needs, about things that felt utterly unrelated to the job description for the role I was seeking, a role I was already essentially performing. It was a flimsy excuse, a transparent deflection. My carefully constructed confidence began to crumble. I felt confusion, then a hot wave of injustice. I pushed back, gently at first. I pointed out my successes, my internal network, my deep understanding of our core business. I was the obvious choice. He became firmer then, the mask of sympathy slipping. "Look," he said, leaning forward, his tone now edged with impatience. "It's not a reflection on you. You're excellent at what you do. Just not for this particular role, at this particular time. There will be other opportunities." He said other opportunities like it was a consolation prize, a bone thrown to a dog. I left that meeting feeling hollowed out. The trust was fractured. I no longer saw a mentor, I saw a barrier. But I didn't understand why. What was he protecting? Why wasn't my performance enough? The next year was different. The hope was gone, replaced by a simmering resentment. I still worked hard because that's just who I was, but the passion was tainted. Every success felt less like a step forward and more like a cruel irony. I was proving my worth, only to have it ignored or minimized. David's praise now sounded insincere, like he was trying to keep me complacent, keep me churning out results while he reaped the rewards and the credit. I started noticing things. How he would present my ideas in meetings without giving me credit. How he would assign projects I had developed to other people to manage, keeping me in a supporting role. How he would subtly undermine my suggestions in front of senior leadership, only to propose something similar himself later. It was death by 1,000 cuts. He wasn't just blocking me, he was actively using me, extracting my value while ensuring I stayed in place. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't denying me the promotion because I wasn't ready, or because of timing, or strategy. He was denying me because my advancement threatened him. My success made him look good, but my independence at a higher level would diminish his control, perhaps even highlight the fact that he relied heavily on my output. He needed me exactly where I was. Productive, reliable, and contained. This wasn't just office politics anymore. This was personal. This was a quiet, insidious form of betrayal from someone I had respected and trusted. The workplace, which had once felt like a place of growth and possibility, now felt like a cage. A gilded cage, maybe, with a decent salary, but a cage nonetheless. The third year. I was more measured now. I didn't plead or appeal to fairness. I presented my case coldly, factually. This project saved X amount. This initiative increased Y by Z%. I had gone above and beyond, restructured my own team efficiently, mentored junior staff. I was ready. David didn't even bother with the smooth talk this time. He was direct, almost bored. "We're not considering internal candidates for that role anymore," he said, shuffling papers on his desk. "We're looking externally. Fresh perspective, you know." A fresh perspective? I knew the company, the industry, our clients, our internal workings better than anyone. I was the fresh perspective combined with essential institutional knowledge. It was a blatant lie. A wall erected simply to block me. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but a quiet, final break. The hope I had clung to for so long, the belief that hard work and merit would eventually win, shattered. In its place bloomed something cold and hard. Anger, yes, but something more. A resolve. A fundamental shift in how I viewed this place and David. I stopped seeing the company as a ladder to climb within his structure. I started seeing it as a landscape, and David as an obstacle to be navigated around, or perhaps eventually removed. The cage suddenly felt less suffocating and more like a strategic position. I wouldn't quit. Quitting meant he won. He pushed me out. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. But how do you fight a battle when your opponent holds all the conventional weapons? He controlled my job title, my salary, my projects, my performance reviews, my visibility to upper management. On the surface, he held all the cards. Any direct confrontation would be career suicide. Any complaint to HR would likely be spun as sour grapes from a passed-over employee. The next period was the deepest crisis. My motivation plummeted. The betrayal festered. Every interaction with David was a performance. I smiled, I nodded, I delivered my results, all while feeling like I was suffocating under a layer of polite deceit. My work suffered, not in quality, but in the joy I took from it. It was a grind. The office felt toxic. The air felt heavy with unspoken tension. My colleagues sensed it too. They saw the pattern, offered quiet commiseration, but no real help. They were just trying to survive their own political battles. I started going home exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the constant emotional drain, the feeling of being trapped and powerless. Sleep became difficult. I questioned everything. Was I crazy? Was I not as good as I thought? Was this just how the corporate world was? A brutal, unfair game? The thought of leaving was a constant whisper, promising escape, but it felt like admitting defeat. One evening, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the wall, the despair felt overwhelming. I had wasted years, poured my energy into a dead end, been systematically undermined by someone I had trusted. It felt like a part of me had died. And that's when I called my aunt. My family wasn't part of my daily work life. They were wealthy, yes, but their business was in a different industry. They had always been supportive, but distant from my corporate world. I called my Aunt Eleanor, the matriarch, the one they called the Iron Butterfly. She was shrewd, quiet, and possessed an almost unnerving ability to see the true angles of power. I didn't call her to complain or ask for a job. I called her because I needed to talk to someone outside the suffocating bubble, someone who understood strategy and consequence. I laid it all out. The years of work, the denied promotions, David's transparent excuses, the slow realization of his deliberate obstruction, the feeling of being trapped. I didn't ask for her help. I just told my story, the bitterness and exhaustion heavy in my voice. She listened without interrupting. Her silence on the other end of the line was not empty. It was active, absorbing. When I finished, the silence stretched for a long moment. I could hear her soft, steady breathing. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, low, entirely devoid of pity. "So," she said, "he's using you, blocking you, and thinks he's safe because you have no conventional recourse." "Yes," I managed. "And you don't want to leave, it wasn't a question." "No," I said, the word firm despite my weariness. "Not like this. Not letting him win." Another pause. "What do you know about the company's ownership structure?" she asked, abruptly changing tack. I blinked, surprised. "Not much, beyond the major shareholders. It's publicly traded, lots of institutional investors, pension funds, some private equity. Dispersed." "Exactly," she said. "Dispersed. Which means no single entity holds a controlling interest." My mind started to race, trying to follow her. Where is she going with this? "What if," she said, her voice still quiet, but now with an edge I recognized, the sound of gears turning, of a plan forming in a formidable mind. What if that changed? The conversation that followed was not about a job or a promotion or even revenge, not in the petty sense. It was about power, about leverage, about seeing a weakness in a structure and exploiting it. My family had the resources, the network, the sheer financial muscle. The company, while successful, was undervalued in their eyes, its stock stagnant, partly, Aunt Eleanor theorized, because of a lack of dynamic leadership I could potentially provide. They weren't just buying a company, they were making a strategic investment. But the timing, the catalyst for identifying this specific company and this specific opportunity was my story. My years of work, my proven value, my frustrated potential, it all added up to a compelling case for a hostile takeover, orchestrated not just for profit, but to reclaim what had been unfairly withheld from one of their own. The plan was audacious, complex, and required absolute secrecy. It involved layers of shell companies, quiet accumulation of shares on the open market, strategic purchases from smaller institutional holders, all done under the radar. It would take time, months, maybe even a year. During that time, I had to continue working as if nothing was happening. I had to maintain the facade, endure David's condescension, his dismissals, his political games, all while knowing, with a growing, fierce certainty, that the ground beneath his feet was dissolving. This was my turning point. No longer was I fighting for a promotion. I was fighting for control. Not just of my career, but of the very environment that had tried to crush me. The despair lifted, replaced by a cold, thrilling sense of purpose. Every slight, every denial, every moment of humiliation wasn't a setback anymore. It was fuel. Fuel for the fire that was being meticulously built, brick by silent brick, outside the walls of David's kingdom. Life inside the office became a strange double existence. By day, I was the diligent, slightly beleaguered employee, still productive but with a carefully guarded reserve. I perfected the art of the neutral expression, the polite agreement, the subtle deflection. I watched David operate, his arrogance growing, his sense of security seemingly absolute. He had no idea. The thought was a constant, secret warmth in my gut. He was so focused on the small pond of office politics, he never saw the ocean liner heading straight for him. By night, I was in a different world. Coded emails, hushed phone calls, cryptic updates from Aunt Eleanor or the lawyers managing the acquisition. Learning the language of proxy fights and shareholder percentages. Understanding the intricate dance of corporate finance. It was exhausting, exhilarating, terrifying. There were moments of doubt, of course. What if the acquisition failed? What if someone leaked the plan? What if David somehow caught wind of it? But the alternative was staying trapped, slowly suffocating. That fear was greater than any risk. So I pushed forward. I trained myself to compartmentalize. The office became a stage where I played a part. The real work, the real battle, was happening in the shadows. The accumulation of shares was agonizingly slow at times. There were setbacks, moments when a large block of shares proved difficult to acquire, when regulatory hurdles appeared. Each delay was a fresh wave of anxiety. Meanwhile, David continued his behavior. He started grooming someone else, a younger employee, for roles slightly above mine, making it clear my path forward within his structure was permanently blocked. He didn't need to be subtle anymore. In his mind, he had won. He had contained me. He had secured his position by denying mine. His confidence was a palpable thing, a smug aura that surrounded him. He believed his control was absolute. This amplified the deepening crisis phase, but it was also fueling my resolve. His visible efforts to replace me, to sideline me entirely, only reinforced how necessary and right this takeover was. He wasn't just blocking my career. He was actively trying to erase my value, to make it impossible for me to ever rise. He was systematically poisoning the well. The quiet satisfaction of the impending reversal grew sharper, colder. There was a particularly difficult week. A major client project I had initiated and developed was officially handed over to the employee David was grooming. My role was reduced to a consultant on my own work. It was a deliberate, public humiliation. David delivered the news with a patronizing smile, talking about growth opportunities for the other employee. It took everything in me not to scream, to smash something, to tell him exactly what I thought of him. Instead, I just nodded, keeping my face blank, feeling the cold rage crystallizing into something diamond-hard inside my chest. That night, I called Aunt Eleanor. My voice was tight, controlled, but she heard the tremor of suppressed fury. I told her what happened. "He's trying to force me out," I said. "He thinks if he makes it miserable enough, I'll quit. He wants to clear the decks before anything happens." "Good," she said, her voice calm. Let him overplay his hand. Let him feel invincible. The higher they climb on false pretenses, the further they fall." She gave me an update. The acquisition was proceeding faster now. A few key blocks of shares had been secured unexpectedly quickly. We were nearing the threshold. "Soon," she promised. Very, very soon. That conversation was the final turning point. The rage solidified into pure, focused determination. I wouldn't just survive. I would dismantle. I would let David continue building his little sandcastle of power, completely unaware of the tide that was about to sweep it away. My energy returned, channeled into a quiet, relentless focus. I continued my work, but I also started documenting everything. David's instructions, his decisions, his interactions, particularly those related to undermining my role or taking credit. Not for HR, but for my own records. Proof, should I ever need it, of his deliberate actions. The final weeks were a blur of tense anticipation. Aunt Eleanor's messages became more frequent, the updates more precise. The date was set. The legal team was ready. The announcement was drafted. My family, through a complex web of holdings, would announce their majority stake acquisition. The day arrived like any other Monday. The sun rose. People commuted. Coffee brewed. In David's world, it was another day of meetings, of managing his team, of enjoying the view from his corner office. In my world, it was D-Day. I dressed carefully that morning. Not in my usual corporate armor, but something that felt commanding, subtle, but strong. I walked into the office building, the familiar scent of stale air and cleaning supplies filling my lungs. Today, it smelled like victory. I went to my desk, logged in, went through the motions. My heart was a frantic bird in my chest, beating against my ribs. I kept looking at the clock. The official announcement was scheduled for 10 a.m., synchronized with the market opening on a day chosen for maximum strategic impact. At 9:55 a.m., I stood up. My legs felt slightly shaky, but steady. I didn't announce where I was going. I simply walked, with deliberate steps, towards the corner office. David's office. My colleagues glanced up, curious. I ignored them. My focus was on the door, the opaque glass panel that symbolized the barrier between us. I didn't knock. I just opened it and walked in. This brings us back to the moment. The leather chair is cold beneath me. I am sitting here, behind this desk that isn't mine yet. The air conditioning hums. David stands frozen in the doorway. He finally finds his voice, a reedy, confused sound. "What are you doing?" he asks, his eyes narrowed, trying to process the visual anomaly of me in his chair. "Get out of my office." I don't move. I just look at him, the years of frustration, of betrayal, of cold planning converging in my gaze. "It's not your office, David," I say, my voice low and steady. "Not anymore." His face contorts. Confusion warps into annoyance. "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" I pick up the press release from the desk, a single sheet of paper I had printed that morning. I hold it up. At 10 a.m. precisely, this morning, the market was notified. Smith Patel Capital Partners, through their subsidiaries, finalized their acquisition of a controlling interest in this company. I see the name Smith Patel register. They are known, respected, ruthless. But he still doesn't connect the dots. So, he says, trying to regain some footing. A major shareholder shift. That happens. It doesn't change anything here. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to barge in here. He gestures towards the door, his hand shaking slightly now. "Security will be here in a moment." "Wait," I say, holding up a hand. "Let me finish." Smith Patel Capital Partners is controlled by the Patel family. I pause, letting the name hang in the air. My family. The color drains from his face. It happens fast, like someone pulled a plug. The smugness evaporates, replaced by a look of dawning, gut-wrenching horror. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His eyes, fixed on mine, are wide with disbelief. He was so caught up in his petty corporate games, the subtle maneuvers of climbing the internal ladder, that he completely missed the fact that the very ground the ladder was resting on was shifting. He saw me as a subordinate to be managed, contained, discarded if necessary. He never saw me as connected to a power structure infinitely larger and more influential than his own carefully constructed little kingdom. He thought he was playing chess, I was playing a different game entirely, a game where the board itself could be bought. His strategy was based on my perceived powerlessness outside the conventional corporate hierarchy. He was blindsided because the threat didn't come from where he was looking. It didn't come from HR or a competing internal candidate or me quitting and going to a competitor. It came from above, from the ownership level he felt secure under. He thought his power was absolute within his domain. He didn't realize his domain was merely a piece on a much larger board, a piece that could be acquired. He takes a step back, stumbling slightly. Your family, he stammers. Yes, David. My family. I stand up now, coming around the desk. The height difference, the perspective is different. I am no longer looking up at him, metaphorically or literally. I am standing at his level, or perhaps looking down. And as the new controlling shareholder, the Patel family has made some immediate decisions regarding the leadership of this company. I walk towards him slowly. He flinches as I approach. The hunter is now the hunted. Effective immediately, I say, stopping a few feet in front of him. Your employment with this company is terminated. He stares at me, speechless. The man who always had an excuse, a deflection, a smooth lie, is utterly silent. All company property, including your access and devices, will be collected today. Security will escort you out. I gesture towards the door he's still blocking. Please clear your personal belongings quickly. You have 30 minutes. He tries to speak, finds his voice, but it's a broken sound. You can't. I built this team. You blocked my career for years, David. I cut him off, my voice still calm, but with an edge of finality. You took credit for my work. You tried to drive me out. You created a toxic environment based on fear and control. This isn't about revenge, though I won't pretend there isn't some satisfaction in it. This is about leadership. And you, David, fundamentally failed. You prioritized your own insecurity over the company's growth and the potential of your employees. You poisoned the well. His face is a mask of disbelief, humiliation, and fear. He sees his entire world collapsing in an instant, brought down by the person he had dismissed as insignificant. He thought he was untouchable within his office walls. He never considered that the walls themselves could be bought and rearranged. He doesn't argue further. The fight has drained out of him. He knows in that moment that it's over. His power, his position, his carefully constructed reality, gone. He steps aside, out of the doorway, his shoulders slumped. I watch him walk out of the office, his steps slow, his head down. It's not the triumphant exit he probably envisioned for himself one day. It's the walk of a defeated man. Silence descends again after the door clicks shut behind him. The office is empty save for me. I walk back to the desk, not his desk anymore, but simply the desk. I look out the window again at the city. It looks different now. The weight of the past years lifts, replaced by the weight of the future. The victory is immense, but it's complex. There's the cold satisfaction of seeing justice served, of reclaiming what was denied. There's the quiet triumph of knowing my endurance and my family's strategic power combined to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But there's also the lingering bitterness of the years lost, the emotional toll of the struggle, the realization that this level of power required a fight I never wanted to fight, using resources that weren't strictly my own, against someone I had once looked up to. It wasn't just a promotion I gained. It was control. Control over the environment, the culture, the direction. The cage is gone. The view from the corner office is clear. But it's also a heavy responsibility. Building something new, something better, will require just as much energy, but hopefully, with less internal warfare. I sit down in the chair again. It still feels unfamiliar, but less cold now. It's just furniture. The power isn't in the chair. It's in the knowledge, the strategy, the leverage, and the willingness to play a different game than the one others expect. David never saw it coming because he was too busy looking down. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.